Silver Solutions Radio, your show for living long and aging strong. We're bringing this show to you because we're passionate about helping people, especially our senior and disabled community. I'm Jim Wojciechowski, your host today, and I'm joined here by my co-hosts, Kathy Wetters and Jeanette Palmer.
You're listening to WRMN Radio on your 1410 on your radio dial. This is your show, and we encourage you to call in with any questions or comments at any time. The number is 847-931-1410.
Our show is brought to you by Right at Home. The 4 pillars of right care from Right at Home mean that your loved one is cared for by the right people, doing the right things the right way, for the right reasons. Make the right choice today. Give us a call, 877-ELDER-99, 877-353-3799.
Good morning again, everybody. We have a great show teed up for you today. Let me ask this question. Has anybody noticed over the last few years that healthcare costs have gone up? This also has, not surprisingly, affected our industry. So whether you want to stay at home or go to an active senior living community, the costs have definitely gone up. With that being said, we need to find ways to be able to pay for our care. We can all hope to hit the lottery, or one of our children become wealthy, and I'm really praying for that.
You have to play to win. You have to play to win to the lottery.
Yes. But in most cases, neither are going to happen. Okay, so it's going to take education and planning, and it's never too late to start. That's why we've invited our guest, Kent Wallbruch, on today to help us sort all of this out. Kent began his career in the corporate setting as a financial analyst. From there, he continued in a variety of analytical roles in the banking world. And for the past many years, Kent has been helping seniors in the insurance industry, focusing on helping people plan appropriately for the potential rewind. Their potential extended care needs.
Very nice. Welcome.
Well, Kent, with that being said, what do you do and why do you do it?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate it. I am a care funding specialist. What I do is my goal is to help put people in an informed position so that they can make educated decisions about the best ways of paying for their loved ones' extended care needs. And I try to help people through what I describe as the journey of care that they're probably on. And that's really the journey of someone who's really either currently receiving or considering receiving professional care. Mm-hmm. And why I do this is really, it stems from an experience I had as a kid. When I was about 10 years old, excuse me, my great uncle suffered a massive stroke. And my parents moved my great uncle and my great aunt from Florida up to Illinois to live with us. And there were already 7 of us in my family to begin with in a relatively modest sized house. So as you can probably guess, put 2 more people in there, one who needs a fairly high level of care. And as you can probably guess, the stress level in our house just went through the roof. And now my parents, primarily my mother, took care of my great uncle for about 2.5 years. Now, we tried to make the very best of the situation as possible, tried to make it as positive as we could, but the incredible stress of the situation, it wrecked our relationship with them. As a matter of fact, after those 2.5 years, they couldn't take it, we couldn't take it. They ended up moving back to Florida, back into a nursing home, and pardon me, they passed away a few years later. Unfortunately, after they left our house, I never saw them again. And that was unfortunate because he was actually my favorite relative. But that aside, actually, I feel that the worst part of the whole experience was the incredible stress that the whole experience brought to our family. It was really something we certainly had never planned for, of course. This will never happen to us. But unfortunately, this happens to people. So like I say, it's become a personal passion of mine and really has become a professional mission of mine to help others minimize the stress that these types of care situations typically cause. And it's, pardon me, it's helped really kind of shape my view as far as, people who go through this. So my care experience when I was a kid, along with numerous conversations I've had with other people, have helped me to realize that every single care experience is unique.
Kent, you're so right. And, we sit around the table and over coffee this morning. Your story is not that uncommon.
I agree with you. It is interesting. While no two care experiences are ever the same, they actually do contain some common themes. First of all, a loved one needs care. But secondly, providing care causes physical, emotional, and financial stresses that affect not just the person needing care, but the entire family.
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you give us a description of a typical journey of somebody that's considering professional personal care?
Sure, great question. In general, what we'll very commonly see is an 85 to 86-year-old woman whose husband has passed away maybe 5 or 6 years previously. Now, when he passed, he took some of the income that was in his name with him. In essence, it died when he did. Now, the surviving spouse, she's typically living in the family property that they've owned for many, many years. And now that the income is reduced since he has passed away, she's using up, other, types of assets like, bank savings and the like to maintain a reasonable standard of living.
Sure.
But now, as she progresses through what I would describe as this journey of care, things change.
Mm-hmm.
Her health changes. Her health requirements change. And very frequently what occurs is sometimes people will have home care available to them, which is fantastic if they do. But for a lot of people, what occurs is that her health care is really backed into a corner by maybe she'll have a fall or suffer some sort of episode, or maybe she'll start experiencing some form of dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And what will very commonly occur is that she will get an intervention by her doctor.
Mm.
And what her doctor will commonly say is that it's no longer safe for her to remain at home being cared for by her family.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor will say, okay, it's time. The doctor will say this to the family. It's time for the family to find some sort of professional care, either be a home care provider or some sort of professional care community.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, what occurs is that maybe a son or daughter will step up, and that person will frequently be the power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it really becomes kind of a point of crisis for the power of attorney because they've never experienced this before. And what will happen is that the power of attorney will perhaps either find home care, which is great, or they'll go out into the local community and take a look at, a number of different care communities that are available to people. And, they'll evaluate their decision on those care communities based on what they feel will be the best place for mom to live.
Sure.
So at that point, what they'll start making decisions like, okay, I wonder what it costs.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll have determined, okay, either this will be the best, care company
Mm-hmm.
to come into the home, or this will be the best care community for mom to live in.
Okay.
What are some of the important questions that people need to answer as they progress down this journey of care?
That's a really important question, because as someone progresses through this journey of care, one of the questions they really need to address is, what type of care is somebody receiving? And what I mean by that is, where is someone along this journey of care?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, pardon me, as far as what type of care is somebody receiving, generally when someone enters a care community, they will think that the cost of that they're paying up front is going to continue to be the cost that they'll pay for the rest of mom or dad's life. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, because what we need to understand is, for instance, where are they in this journey of care, as I mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
Are they receiving care at home?
Mm.
How long have they been in a care community, for instance?
Mm-hmm.
We need to really evaluate, okay, on an ongoing basis, what are they going to be facing care need-wise? Because different care conditions progress at different rates, and we need to get a handle on what type of cost of care is someone likely to be receiving. So getting as much information as we can about where they are in this progression of care is critical to helping us understand really what type of costs of care is somebody going to be facing, because the different care that they might be facing will have a very dramatic impact upon the cost of care that they're going to be facing.
That's very important, and actually in my introduction we covered a little bit of this. Why is the rising cost of care so important to plan for?
That's a really key question, because as Jim, as you mentioned earlier, the cost of care is not going to go down anytime soon.
No.
So it becomes really relevant and key to focus on this, because generally speaking, care providers, either home care providers or care communities, will raise the cost of care at least once a year, and those increases can be quite significant. So for example, if somebody has maybe, let's say hypothetically, $200,000 of assets specifically set aside for their loved one's care, and they're faced with the cost of care of about, say, $50,000 per year, it's natural that they will think, okay, I have 4 years of care covered. However, if you factor in, let's say, a 5% per year increase in the cost of care, they no longer have 4 years of care covered. Realistically, we're going to be facing maybe 3.5 years, maybe 3.6 years of care covered, and that immediately has an impact upon their cost of care. And for instance, let's take a look, for instance, at the average cost of care in the Chicagoland area. The cost of care will vary dramatically depending upon the level of care that somebody needs. And what I mean by that is, if somebody needs maybe adult daycare as the initial stage of care that maybe mom or dad needs, on average, we'll be facing maybe $18,000 to $19,000 per year to pay for that. If the level of care needed progresses to the point where they need maybe home care or adult daycare, or assisted living, we're looking at an average in the Chicagoland area of about $56,000+ per year.
Wow.
Now, if the cost of care, or if their care needs progress to the point where maybe they need a private room in a nursing home, the average cost of care at that level in the Chicagoland area is going to be a little over $102,000 per year. That is a significant sum of money. And if you factor in, let's say somebody needs to spend the next 5 years in care at a rate of about an increase of about 5% per year, they're going to spend close to $565,000 on their person's care. And that is a huge amount of money that someone has to really plan for.
And then
That's amazing.
And that's not even taking into consideration that people are living longer.
Exactly. And that is a very relevant point.
Sure.
Because let's put it this way. If someone needs to stay, the average stay in a care community is 3.7 years. However, I want to caution people, that is an average. That takes into account a number of different things. It'll take into account maybe someone who has maybe just been recently discharged from a hospital, they're recovering in a nursing home,
Right.
they're in a point of crisis. It also takes into account people maybe who are in a Medicaid funded community, but it will also take into account people who have entered a care community as a lifestyle choice. What we are seeing is that people are entering care communities earlier and earlier in their lives. I mean, it could be a case of they just want to be part of a community.
Why? Right.
Maybe
We talk about that a lot.
maybe they're lonely. They may have minimal care needs, but they're entering care communities earlier and earlier in years, so that people, the average stay in a care community in the private sector really is no longer 3.7 years anymore. People staying in that setting for 7, 8, 9, or even 10 years is not uncommon anymore. And I think if let's give an example. If you were in a room of 100 people, and you were to ask those people, how many of you are going to go into care someday? I can pretty much guarantee you not a single hand will go up.
We see that a lot. Amen.
But honestly, what we do know is that at least a quarter of those people are going to be going into care at some point. So if you think, what if you have to spend the next 5 years in care? That's going to be a lot of money that they really do need to plan for. So like I say, the increase of cost of care is a huge factor that people really need to start focusing on and need to be advised about and get a really good perspective on it, because it's going to be facing them realistically.
Wow.
What happens when their money runs out?
That is a very interesting thing, because the absolute worst thing that can happen to somebody is to run out of money while they still need care. Because let's put it this way, if they're receiving care, that's the best possible situation for them. They're getting care usually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're getting medication when they're supposed to be receiving it, and they're getting properly looked after. That's a huge thing. They have this sense of security. They have peace of mind knowing that, hey, mom or dad is receiving the level of care that they really need to be able to thrive and maintain that standard of living that they've become accustomed to. Absolutely nobody wants to have to pull mom or dad out of that particular situation at what is a very vulnerable time in their life. They are faced with a number of different options. If they run out of money, it could be a case of, okay, they may, if they're receiving care at home, okay, what are they going to be facing? Okay, unfortunately, they're not going to have that professional care available to them anymore. It could be a case of, okay, family has to take care of them again. Or if they're in a care community, all of a sudden they're no longer in that, that environment anymore. And again, they may have to come home, cared for by a family member, or they may have to go down the Medicaid route, which I'm thankful that Medicaid exists. I truly am, because it provides the funding for so many people's care. And there are a lot of very wonderful Medicaid communities. The downside is the path to qualify for Medicaid, it's not a pleasant path to go down. And I don't want to get into the weeds at this point, but it's important for people to understand really what they're going to be facing if that is a situation that they're faced with.
So it's all about planning, getting education, about, and literally, and I have to practice what I preach here, get my head out of the sand and start looking ahead. What are some general types of solutions? We talked a lot about the process. What are some solutions we can look at?
There are a lot of different solutions available to people. And let's put it this way, if someone has not burned through and spent all of their money, their assets, their home, etc., there are a lot of options that are available to people, but it's important for people to be educated on really the perspective of all these different types of solutions. So for instance, a lot of people think, you know what, I've worked hard on my entire life, I've paid my taxes, the government benefits will take care of me. That'll provide for my extended care needs.
Oh, wow. People are actually thinking that?
They are thinking that. Unfortunately, there's kind of a downside to this. And like I say, as I mentioned before, the Medicaid route it's available, and for a lot of people, it is the solution for people. But to qualify for it, like I say, it's not the most pleasant process in the world, and it impacts entire families in order to qualify for it. Other solutions might include, okay, maybe I've got, the family property that I've lived in for many, many years. Maybe I can rent that out, and, or perhaps I can, get a reverse mortgage, or maybe I can sell the property, put the money in a bank account, and use that money thereafter, to pay for my care. Or there are, types of solutions available to people that, for instance, in exchange for a certain amount of money, you can get a guaranteed stream of income to pay for your care that will last for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. So like I say, the important thing to understand is that there are a lot of different options available to people. But the critical thing is really to understand the pros and cons to all of these solutions, because everything has pros and cons. And it's really important to understand how that stacks up against any given person's specific situation. As I think I mentioned, everybody's circumstances are unique, and evaluating where their particular situation is critical to determine what the best solution is for somebody, and getting guidance on that is kind of the key piece to that.
It is imperative.
And so we had mentioned before about underwriting. Can you tell us about the power of underwriting and how that may have a significant impact on somebody's ability to pay for care?
Absolutely. What I mean by underwriting is the evaluation or assessment of a person's physical or cognitive situation. What is their health like? And getting as much information as we possibly can in as great of detail as possible about their physical or cognitive impairments is crucial to helping us get as much money as we can for somebody to help pay for their care. For example, we can assess things like frailty. What is frailty? Frailty, in essence, is old age. A lot of people don't realize that old age has a number of aspects where it can be an impairment, and assessing frailty is a key component. We'll take a look at things like strokes. Why do we look at strokes? Because that could be a precursor to vascular dementia. It could be a precursor to Alzheimer's. We'll take a look at falls. Why are falls so important? If someone's had one fall, certainly it's a cause for concern. We want to gather some information about that. If they had 2 falls, okay, that's leading us to believe that there is perhaps an underlying issue that needs to be addressed. 3 or more falls, we really are at that point pretty certain that someone has a chronic issue that is really going to have a significant impact upon their ongoing health concerns. So understanding the details about their health is crucial to us building a solution that's going to make the most sense for them.
I'm amazed that the insurance companies are reviewing that information, but a lot of times the families and the doctors don't even take those things into consideration.
Exactly. The thing is, we have available to us over 20 years of very detailed data about the wide variety of different health conditions, and really what that helps us to do is answer that big unanswered question of how long is mom or dad going to live?
Right. What is the process you go through when people who are looking for guidance and paying for their loved one's care don't know which way to turn?
That's a key component, because what I do when I meet with families, and I try to meet with everybody who is going to have a relevant opinion and input upon the subject. So specifically, it's crucial that I meet with powers of attorney. If someone maybe has an elder care attorney that they're working with, I really like to meet with them too, because I want anybody whose opinion is going to have some relevance to making a decision about someone's care is crucial. What I want to do is gather as much information as I possibly can about their particular situation. What that would allow me to do is then come back to them with a number of different options that they will talk about, again, the pros and cons, and then they can make an educated decision about that. And then what we really want to do is really kind of isolate what I refer to as the funding gap. And what I mean by that is people may have a stream of income, for instance, like pension income, 401k income, 403b income, but they're also going to have a cash outflow. It could be the home care company's monthly charge, or the care community that they're living in. They're writing a check every single month for that. The difference between those two things is going to be what I refer to as the funding gap. That helps us to identify the amount of money that needs to be provided for. And those two components, like I say, all the detailed information about their health and finding out what the funding gap will allow me to come back to provide people with the information to allow them to make an informed decision.
Kent, we can go on. There's just so much information out there, and thank you for taking us through this. What I want people I want to encourage people to give Kent a call. You need help going through these processes. So, Kent, would you please share your contact information with our audience?
Absolutely. Again, my name is Kent Wallbruch. Just the spelling on that, it's KentWallbruch. My phone number is 630-802-2869. You can certainly reach me via email, and that is KWALLBRUCH@comcast.net.
Wonderful. Kent, thanks again for being on our show today. Thank you for what you do and what you provide to our senior community, and we'd love to have you back again.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.